you can have a really, really small circle of competence. But what is very important is staying within the circle, not even going to the edges, stay in the epicenter. And, to ask the question is to answer it. So if you're wondering if something is within your circle of competence or not, the answer is it's not in your circle of competence. And probably, I think at your ages, what is likely the most probable to be within your circle of competence are products and services that you use regularly. Generally speaking, I think a good way to kind of begin your journey in terms of understanding, what businesses to look at, just look at all the products and services you consume. Do you go on YouTube? Do you go on Facebook? Do you use Google? Do you use an Apple iPhone? Do you use an Android phone? What brand of clothing do you wear? What kind of toothpaste do you use? Just, all your daily habits. What kind of drinks do you like to drink? Food you like to eat? And that's, I think, a starting point, because generally speaking, for a brand to come through and be something that you would trust and use is a very high bar. And usually they have to have some very special attributes and characteristics for the business to get there. And so I think that's probably the simplest way to start tackling the circle of competence issue. And also, I think it's not that hard to figure out what is a good business and what is not a good business. It's relatively easy to start, segregating those. So if you are familiar and a consumer of products, which then you can tell whether they're a good business or not, then once you know that there's a few products you use, a few services you use that are good businesses, then from then on, I think you can start trying to figure out whether an investment makes sense and diving deep and figuring it out and so on.
That's great. A lot of people are asking about a combination of your process when you're like reading articles or books, listening to podcasts, and then also where you're sourcing those from. And if you can go into that for a little bit.
Well, I think that the best way to, approach this is kind of like as if you're a gentleman or lady of leisure. I'm curious about a lot of things. I'm very curious about a lot of different businesses and how they work. I'm always trying to, I'm reading autobiographies or biographies. I was just listening to a podcast. I'm in the middle of it right now, which is between Reid Hoffman and John Elkann on Reid Hoffman's broad podcast. And John Elkann is the chairman of Fiat Chrysler. We'd made that investment maybe 9 years ago. I'm still learning stuff about the company from that podcast, even though I used to own the stock and I've known John for so many years. I read a few newspapers every day, the physical papers. You could do it digitally. If you run across interesting books or interesting people to understand them, I think what you're looking for is something that hits you like a 2x4 aha moment, where some company or some business you may be a customer of, but you've then studied it and then you come up with some major, I would say, insight into the business that most other market participants probably don't understand and or don't appreciate. And if that insight is meaningful and valid, that becomes a big edge. And you don't need that to happen even more than once a year. The reading is just something to enjoy and, broaden your horizons. But through all of that, once in a while, you get these aha moments.